capacity exceeded. Target engaged.
Delta Echo X-ray. Automated flight control protocol initiated. Please submit a request prior to landing. Docking permission authorized. You may proceed to landing pad 01.
Landing gear deployed.
Docking procedure completed. Ship secured. Greetings, Commander.
Incoming message.
sanctioned acts of aggression will
Contact.
not
Deploying ground services.
obey station law.
Cargo hold at maximum capacity. Landing gear retracted.
Landing coupler disengaged. Clear for departure.
Locking bay access is required. Annihilation. Make way.
Scan detected.
Warning. Observe no fire restrictions.
Frameshift drive charging. Engage.
for you, Commander. Access approved. Make your way to landing pad 3-6. Automated docking confirmed.
Scan detected. Landing gear deployed.
Landing sequence completed. Deploying ground crew.
This station operates a zero-tolerance policy towards criminal infractions. Obey station.
Landing gear retracted.
Ship released. Regulate speed until clear of exclusion zone.
Authorization to be inside the docking bay. Remember, loitering is a violation.
Orbital flight engaged.
Recon Delta Echo X-ray. Automated flight control protocol initiated. Please submit a request prior to landing. Docking permission authorized. You may proceed to landing pad 01.
Landing gear deployed.
Docking procedure completed. Ship secured. Greetings, Commander.
Federal Station, Commander. Access granted. Make your way to landing pad 1-4. Assisted docking initiated.
Landing gear deployed.
For your convenience and safety, pacification
Landing completed.
missions are
Ground crew have been dispatched.
at this station.
extracted, regulate speed until clear of exclusion zone.
engaged.
Gutamaya Delta Echo X-ray. Automated flight control protocol initiated. Please submit a request prior to landing. Docking permission authorized. You may proceed to landing pad 06.
Landing gear deployed.
Docking procedure completed. Ship secured. Greetings, Commander.
Orbital flight engaged.
Maya Delta Echo X-ray. Automated flight control protocol initiated. Please submit a request prior to landing. Docking permission authorized. You may proceed to landing pad 06.
Landing gear deployed.
Docking procedure completed. Ship secured. Greetings, Commander.
Farpoint Media.
It's Kick-Ass Mystic Ninja time!
Hey, Kick-Ass Mystic Ninjas. Now, what are you guys talking about? I mean, you guys sounded like a bunch of special needs kids hitting each other with Lady Hawk pillows. You guys are way off base. That's all I have to say, man. That was pretty bad.
I'm gonna flip out like a ninja, 'cause that's what ninjas do. I'm gonna flip out like a ninja, and you should flip out too.
Welcome back to another Kick-Ass Mystic Ninjas podcast. We are late, but never forgotten. My name is Summer Brooks.
I'm Joe Murphy.
And I'm David Moldauer.
And we are the Kick-Ass Mystic Ninjas. This show is definitely categorized as a geek show. We talk at length about older novels, movies and TV shows, science fiction, fantasy, paranormal, whatever. And we try to keep things from 10 years ago and older, so we pick up the things you might have forgotten about and, well, remind you of the good stuff and sometimes the bad stuff too. The 10 years rule is not a hard, fast rule. We can adapt as time goes on because that's what ninjas do best. Adapt to their environment.
and use smoke bombs.
Pepper spray.
I think modern ninjas.
Nah, the pepper spray in the eyeballs is better than the smoke bombs. The smoke bombs, that's just a cheap trick. The pepper spray, and you're gone. That's classic. That's classic. All right. Today's show is, I don't know. Can we say it's a fan favorite? Can we call this one a cult classic?
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely.
A cult classic? This is
Easily
on that list.
This is a cult classic, Logan's Run, based on a novel written by William F. Nolan. When was the novel published? That I don't know.
I can tell you that. The novel came out in 1967.
And the movie came out in 1976.
1976. It was William F. Nolan and George Clayton Johnson.
Yes. In my search,
Wrote it in, I believe, 3 weeks.
Did he really?
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, he and the two authors were together, and they just wanted to hammer out a book. And so they did in like 3 weeks.
Wow.
And yet, I've heard that the book isn't very good, so maybe the lesson is, if you want to sell
Don't
movie
hammer
rights,
out a book in 3 weeks.
if you want to sell movie rights, are good, but if you want to write a book for the ages, then maybe a little bit more than 3 weeks would be good.
Well, that's actually kind of interesting because some commentary on the pre-show discussion thread, people liked the book better than the movie, which we're about to talk about. Yes.
Maybe the movie's not that good either.
Well,
maybe they both stink.
I can honestly say a rewatching of it didn't hold up to what I remembered seeing, I don't know, in 1980 when I first saw it.
Well, I personally saw this movie probably 5 years ago, and I thought it was a B plus. And I watched it again. It's still a B plus. I think I didn't have a very high expectation, but we can go into detail of what. Joe, what did you think of it?
I'm trying to remember the first time I saw it, because I can remember the final scene. No, you don't have to die at 30. At the end of the book, and I remember having that memory for a long time. So I must have been pretty young when I first saw it. I don't know. The movie's not great. I mean, plot-wise, it's pretty silly. Although it had one interesting metaphor in it about sanctuary and whether it exists or not that I thought was actually kind of profound for a movie that was as silly as it was. That apparently wasn't in the book. It was a different plot point than the book. I'd give it a B. I mean, it's worth seeing just to say you've seen the classic Logan's Run, but it's not a wonderful flick.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably one of the main reasons to see an old cult classic like this is so that you get all the jokes and all those various episodes of The Simpsons, and they reference it in Free Enterprise. I mean, it's all over the place in pop culture, and it's kind of frustrating when you keep seeing something referenced and you don't know what they're talking about. So see Logan's Run, and you'll get a lot more jokes than you did before.
Okay, well, to start off with, let's give a quick little summary about what the movie's about. In the year of the city 2274, humans forsake the ravaged outer environment by living in a vast bubbled metropolis. In there, computerized servo mechanisms provide all needs, and everyone can pursue endless hedonism. Endless, that is, until last day. That's when anyone who's 30 must submit to Carousel, a soaring, spinning trip to eternity and supposed rebirth. Keyword, supposed rebirth.
Very well read.
Thank you very much.
So basically, you've got this culture of youth, a large number of people living with no thought of the future, no thought of the past, in sort of a vast mall-like complex. There's not much. I mean, it was shot in a mall in Fort Worth, and it looks like one of the, sort of those giant malls with the movie theater and the Walmart. You don't really need to leave because everything's sort of provided. So imagine if the entire world was that, which could happen. I mean, if it keeps going the way it does, and all of America is converted into a Walmart, then that is that's the lifestyle that we're looking forward to. And the way they're able to maintain this is when you turn 30, you get into this giant contraption, you get flung up into the air magically, and then you burst into sparks. And that's that. Right.
Which is some sort, they call it renewal, and the idea is kind of a reincarnation idea, basically. And the entire city's domed, so it's all sealed in, so nobody gets any input from the outside. So there's, even if there are people out there who are older, none of them ever see them or know about it. So the idea that anybody lives to be past 30 is completely foreign to them.
And it's ruled by a computer, so there's no older, there's no person in charge who sort of knows what's going on. All the decisions and all the operations are handled by a very 70s computer that has a text feed, and that's why no one really has any sense of what happened in the past or why things are the way they are. And there's sort of a hesitancy for everyone to question. It's one of these situations where everyone's satisfied. They're content. They're not necessarily happy about having to get turned into sparks when they're 30, but it's the way it is, and there's no one around to question it, because as soon as you've been around long enough to question it, it's probably just about time to get blown up.
And that's actually one small thing I had a question with. I don't think they ever explained what was, quote, supposed to happen with someone who was renewed. Did they turn into a baby again and grow up all over again? Did they come back 10 years younger, 20 years younger, and go forward again? It was never clearly stated in the movie what renewal was supposed to be. So how could these people not think that renewal meant anything other than death?
Well, first of all, I think I caught a little bit of that. One thing is that not everyone gets renewed. Carousel is the ritual on everyone whenever it's your last day, and of course you're not the only one. There's probably 15 or 20 people in the city who all sort of come due on the same night. They all stand in a circle in this machine called Carousel, and then some sort of energy causes them to float up, and everyone's cheering them on. The idea being that if they somehow make it to the top, I got the impression that they wanted to make it to the top of this machine before exploding, cheering everyone to make it up, and everyone sort of turns into sparks. Now, I guess the idea being that if they're strong enough to renew, if they're sort of good enough, then they will renew, and at a certain point, Logan, who Logan is the main character in the film, confronts his friend and asks him, have you ever met anyone who renewed? And the friend shrugs it off, maybe, I don't really know, but it's obviously, they don't question it. It hasn't even occurred to them what renewal would look like. But they sort of take it for granted that somehow, somewhere, someone is renewing without actually seeing any evidence. So I'm not sure that they really wouldn't know how that works, whether they come back as a baby or just looking the same. And later on, when Logan's palm goes clear, people say, oh, you renewed. And so obviously it's possible to them that you would renew it looking the same way that you did when you died. But maybe we should talk a bit about the life clocks.
Oh, the life clocks My thought was that with the renewing is that the crystal in their palm was green, and then it went red and flashing red, and then went black on last day.
Well, I actually have it here. I mean, basically, when you're born, and they actually show a baby. Our main character is Logan 5. Every person in the movie has a name and a number. I guess when it comes time for you to die, you're replaced by the next person in your name sequence. So Logan 5, near the beginning of the film, is looking at a baby, and of course, the babies, you never know your parents. It's one of these sort of utopian futures where sex is sort of anonymous, and there's no mothers and no families. But he's looking at a baby, and he's like, that's Logan 6. That's the next Logan. And the baby has a little life clock in its palm. And when the baby is born, the crystal starts off as white, then it turns yellow at 7 years old, then turns green at 15. 21 years, when you're 21 years old, it turns red. And 10 days before your last day, when you're almost 30 years old, it starts flashing. And that means you have 10 days until your last day. And then on your last day, it turns black and you die. So that's how the life clock works.
So actually, just to give a little more idea of the story, Logan is a Sandman, and he is a red. And many people honestly don't believe in renewal. They don't believe in the carousel. So when their time comes for carousel, they often run. And his job as a Sandman is to terminate runners, basically, to kill them, to try to, for anybody who's trying to live past their last day, his job is to exterminate them, which kind of keeps the people in line, because most people figure, well, they'd rather face the carousel and hope for renewal than to, just get exterminated and have no chance for any kind of rebirth after their last day. And some of these people who don't believe in the renewal believe in a place called Sanctuary, which is a place that they can run to and grow old.
Right. Well, keep in mind that the official party line is that if they, after that 30th birthday, they die. The official line is that the life clock is not just a measurement of time, but actually indicates when you're going to die, and that if they were not in the carousel to get reborn, and if they just didn't go, they would die anyway. And that's what they're told. Whether people believe that or not, they are told that they're not going to live past their 30th birthday. So these runners are it's a leap of faith for them. They really don't believe in the carousel, but everyone else sort of believes that if they don't go in the carousel, they're going to die anyway.
And that brings up another question. The people who knew they were going to die, why did they wait until their supposed last day to run?
Yeah, that was
the ones in
question.
the movie. It's like, why didn't they start running, in that 10 days earlier? They all ran on their supposed carousel day. Why not leave a day early when they're not looking for you?
Well, exactly. Well, it raises the question. I mean, obviously, I think it comes down to pure terror, that they just won't go unless they have to. Because in this world, I mean, it looks like a giant mall, but you really get the sense that there is nowhere else. There is no way out. And you see these runners, you see these people who are sort of congregating and working together to find an escape, but no one has. You get the sense that all of these people have been looking for a way out, and they might know that there are some sort of back rooms in this vast complex, but there's really no way out of it. And of course, the Sandmen, who are the police, the enforcers, have the sensors. They can find anybody wherever they are. There's a sequence in the film where Logan is hunting down a runner, and she's gone into sort of the non-policed zone. There's sort of a demilitarized zone of the city, and he goes there, and there's a lot of feral people sort of living by their wits without any of the help of the robots and food supplies and whatever. But he still finds her no problem. I mean, there's really nowhere to hide in this city.
Did you notice the breakdown of the people who were in the wild area? I can't remember what they called it in there. And the people in the civilized world, only people who were Reds, 21 and older, could live in the pleasure zone, where women were sent to Sandmen and to whoever, party all day, play all day, have sex all night. But the younger kids are living off like wild men. How do you make that transition from being a street rat kid living off your wits and your guts?
Oh, I don't think all of the kids. I don't think you had to live in the wild zone as a kid. I think that some of the wild kids had escaped, but there were certainly children in the main area.
I didn't remember seeing any children in the main area.
Oh yeah.
the Cubs were kids who ran off, but they weren't
Right.
all the children. All the children weren't left to fend for themselves,
Okay,
and
so-
then were allowed into society later.
So I misinterpreted that. That's my bad. Okay.
Yeah.
No, the Cubs. The only thing was that once you got to a certain age, the Cubs didn't want you around anymore. They basically had to leave and join society because the Cubs didn't want you around. But it didn't. But if you were under a certain age, you didn't have to be, out there as one of the Cubs.
Ship release. Departure authorized.
Themes of the film. And I think this is one of the things that makes this film so worth watching as sort of a relic of the 1970s is that the sex or the attitudes about sex. I mean, obviously whenever you see a film that's sort of projecting any sort of future, it always says a lot more about the time that it's being sort of written than about any sort of actual future. And in this case, this is written in the 60s and then made in the 70s. He, as a Sandman, I guess everyone has access to this thing called the circus. So after a hard day's work killing runners, Logan heads back to his apartment, and of course he's wearing like a silk robe because that's what swingers like to wear in the future and in the 70s. And he pulls out like a remote control, tunes it, and he's tuning it like a television set, but he's tuning people on a sort of a platform. And first a guy shows up, and there's sort of a pause as if maybe that'll do. And then he twists it some more, and he gets a very attractive woman who turns out to be, the love interest of the film. But the idea being, I guess, that this is how people meet up. It's sort of like online dating for the future. You just sort of...
Speed dating.
Exactly. You just sort of dial a person, and then they can step off the platform, have your fun, and then they can sort of go back to their apartment. It's some sort of teleportation online dating device, which is actually pretty convenient if you think about it. And there's this scene where...
I mean, there's no real concept. It's not like speed dating, like where you're trying to find dates. It's pretty much you get on the circuit to get laid.
Exactly.
It's not like you're trying to find somebody to have a relationship with. It's get on the circuit, find somebody. If you like them, go to bed with them, and then go home.
Yeah, but that's no walk of shame. That's the beauty of it. You just get back on there and get zapped back to your apartment. No one has to see you with messy hair. And there's also a scene where Logan's friend, who's also a Sandman, returns to the apartment because I guess they live together. They're like buddies, like dorm. It's like the ultimate dorm, this apartment, like the perfect 70s dorm future. And he has this pink smoke. He throws up this balloon or something, and all this pink smoke comes out. And they love the pink smoke. Obviously these are just a bunch of actors standing around with pink smoke, but they really make you believe that standing in that pink smoke is like the best thing ever. It is the best pink smoke that you could ever stand in. And there's something about that. It's like the ultimate 70s experience. A pink smoke that's just awesome. And there's naked women in your dorm room. That's the 70s.
I was wondering if the smokes were supposed to be drugs, because the same thing happens when they have to run through the love store or the love shop.
Yeah.
You walk under a mist, and suddenly everything starts going wonky and slows down. And I was wondering if that was supposed to be some sort of drug.
That has to be one of the best chase sequences. One of the best chase sequences in all history. You have these people who are running for their very lives in a dystopian future, but there's naked people everywhere, and they're all in slow motion. So they're trying.
And don't forget the strobe lights.
The strobe lights. Trying to find their way out, and the best part is, it's not that they're drugged and they're slow. They're fine, but the horny naked people are jumping on them and grabbing, and they're naked. They're actually naked, and they're grabbing at them. Like, is there anything sexy about that? Was there any chance that the naked people thought that these people wanted to have sex? And it was like, what's the matter? I'm just jumping on you naked, and they're like shoving them off, and like the naked people are almost fighting them to keep them in the orgy. And I just can't. What are the naked people thinking? I couldn't understand why, if you're in an orgy and someone like runs in and they're obviously upset, you wouldn't jump on them naked. That's not how you run an orgy.
It was the pink smoke.
It's the pink smoke, which is why it's so awesome.
I guess we should mention the key reason why Logan runs in the first place. The computer that runs their dome, their city, is concerned about Sanctuary because there are, 1,100 missing runners?
So that sounds something over 1,000.
Yeah, something over 1,000 missing people who didn't renew and cannot be accounted for. Where are they? So Logan being the dutiful Sandman, says, "Sure, I'll go on this assignment. What do I do?" "Oh, put your hand on this dial." And his clock is sped up. He's like, "Whoa, wait a minute. Do I get those 4 years back?"
Right, because Logan's 26, so he technically had 4 more years. He was just a red, and he was, of course, very lackadaisical when he meets the girl and she says, you know, "This isn't right," or "I feel bad, my friend died." He says, "Oh, you're young, you know, don't worry about it." But then as soon as he loses those last 4 years, suddenly he's like, "Do I get those 4 years back?" And you get the impression that he won't. That he's basically going to find sanctuary and then he's going to die and everything else.
I thought it was funny how you could see how rushed he was. He was trying to get her, pushing her, like, "Tell me where Sanctuary is, tell me where Sanctuary is, because the faster I get back, the faster this is over, and maybe I can talk to the computer and get any of my 4 years back."
Yeah, he wasn't very subtle at all. He didn't have a whole lot of time to slowly infiltrate, you know, the other runners and try to become one of their own. He's like, "Look at me, I'm flashing, I gotta run now, tell me, you know, how to get out." Because his mission is to find Sanctuary and basically destroy it and kill everybody there. So all the runners, because he's a Sandman, doesn't believe him that he's running. Sandmen don't run, they kill runners.
Right.
And he's also, none of the other Sandmen know that he's on a mission. They think he's running, so he run for his life through the pink smoke and orgy and the whole thing trying to get away from the Sandmen.
But he does he manages to prove his sort of loyalty to the cause after trying to get his face changed. This is another sentence thing. They're always taking sort of the perfect bad technology and extrapolating it. Here in this future city, even though there's not much technology, which is sort of ironic, there doesn't seem to be much science or any sort of culture, but we have these very sophisticated plastic surgeons, even though they're like 28 years old.
And they call it New You, and they get into plastic surgery and augmentation.
Are they really doing the surgery, or are they just programming, you know, running a program that's in the computer, and then the computer runs the laser?
Well, the implication, I mean, he does say that, you know, we've improved. You know, there's an implication that people are advancing this science, and that he, the doctor, is sort of really good at. So it does not seem like they're just pressing buttons and machines. For some reason, even though everything else is sort of backwards, they do seem to understand plastic surgery, and they have this giant, scary plastic surgery laser machine, which Logan's in, and then the doctor gets orders to kill Logan while he's in there. And of course, Logan escapes and throws the doctor in, and the doctor gets sliced and diced. But it's that action that convinces the runners that he's actually, obviously, you know, if you're a police officer undercover, you're not going to let the doctor get chopped in half. You can avoid it. So they believe him and let him in. And we find out that there is no sanctuary. They're just sort of hanging out in the background, and they don't know where they're going either.
Yeah, they don't know. They know how to get out. It's like, well, we sent everybody that way, and they never came back, so I guess they made it out.
Exactly.
And I'm like, okay, the term reconnaissance doesn't exist. I can gloss over that.
I mean, in a way, it's, I mean, one of the big themes is life after death, and when you look at that from that perspective, it is a bit of a metaphor. You know, you have all these people, and they have a certain allotted lifespan, and you know, the system, which we see as religion, says that if you go through this ritual, you will be reborn, even though there's no proof. And then they have the choice of sort of getting out early, leaving the royal, and yeah, no one's come back, but maybe it's just so awesome.
There was even the point made where Logan just finally says, you know, maybe there was never a sanctuary, but people just didn't want to die. So they made it up, they believed it enough, so they believed it was there.
Yeah.
You know?
It's obviously a metaphor for heaven.
Exactly. So the idea that they would continue to go down until they got outside of the dome, and since nobody came back, they must have made it a sanctuary. I think it's stupid of them to make that assumption, but I can buy the fact that they did that.
When the legend is better than the truth, believe the legend.
Yes, and it's not like they're given any critical thinking skills in this giant mall that they live in. I mean, they just sort of
these are all 20-year-olds.
Exactly, they're just a bunch of kids, and they don't know any better. But anyway, they're chased out. Logan and his female companion, is it Jessica? Fine?
Jessica, yeah.
They're chased out by Logan's ex-friend and the other Sandman princess, played by
Oh, yeah.
and that's when they discover Box. Does anyone want to talk about Box? One of the most frightening robots in all of science fiction cinema history.
Well, Vox is, when Jessica and Logan escape, they escape into this very icy cave, basically. And they strip off their wet clothes because they had to go through a bunch of water, find these warm animal skins, I guess, to wrap themselves in. And there's this robot. Yeah, conveniently located in this robot box comes out to say that he's there to keep them all kinds of food and, take care of their needs. And it goes along, and it turns out to be a hoax. And Fox
it's not a hoax. It's not a hoax.
It's not a hoax, except he's there to freeze them and preserve them.
Right, but
food.
You didn't hear what Box said.
What Box says basically is that he originally was there to freeze food. He says, sea greens, proteins from the sea. They would bring them out from outside the city and he would freeze them and store them. The problem is that process ended when the city sort of fell into sort of a post-apocalyptic ruin. And then when people started coming out of the runners, they started freezing them instead just because there's a robot that has images of this. So they discover
he's supposed to freeze protein. He's supposed to freeze protein, and well, here's a walking protein bag.
So you look on the wall, and there's all of these runners stretching off into the distance, and they're all frozen. And that's when Logan realizes that no one has made it out there. Well, the Box has been there, and he's frozen, and he tries to freeze them as well. And by the way, this robot is incredibly creepy. It's like a giant metal box on the bottom, but his head is a person. I believe it's a person's head with a silver foil over it. So his face is way too expressive for a robot. It's a bit like a tin man. Really, I thought that was a particularly creepy robot. Very scary.
Are you online right now?
I am.
Look up. See, on the credits it said Roscoe was in the movie. I'm like, I didn't see him. Wait,
that was Box. That was Box.
Yeah,
right.
He voices Andy Aston.
Now, what do I know Roscoe Lee Brown from? He's got like 145 movies here. I'm not seeing what I should.
At least. Something from the late 80s. Science fiction.
Him, of course. Yeah, yes. He's been in a lot of things. Of course, now our listeners are he's one of those guys who's been
in everything.
He was on The Cosby Show. He was on, and I remember, he was also in the Muppet movies in a variety of roles. You look online, people. This guy is one of those faces that you've seen him like, he was on Soap. He was Saunders on Soap, if you remember that wonderful series. And on Benson, which was a spin-off of Soap. That's funny. That's perfect.
Yep,
that makes perfect sense.
That's I'm trying to remember the one role that he would have been in that people would recognize, and I can't think of it right now.
Anyway, so Box tries to freeze them. They escape.
So they finally escape Box, and they make it to the outside, and they're the first people who made it past, and so you see this big ball rising out of the sky, and they have no idea what it is. And they proceed to find a city, which is a ruined Washington, D.C., and they come across their first old man. And they have
they've never seen an old person.
Yeah, they didn't even, they go into Washington and they see a statue of Abraham Lincoln. They're like, I've never seen a face like that before. What is that? And they're like, I think that's an old person. And they finally find somebody who is basically holed up in one of the buildings with a bunch of cats. And they have this fantastic idea about sending him back with them, showing the people that they can go far over than there.
Yes, I mean one thing is that when they leave, when they actually get out of the city, their life clocks are reset. They don't show any information anymore. So that right there tells them that the idea that they will die just because the life clock turns black is not true. But obviously, finding an old person is even better because the old man doesn't have it. He tells them that his parents raised him as a family, and of course the idea that families form together, husband or wife is. The old man's a little bit batty. He's been living alone after his parents died. There's no more people to repopulate. He's just there with his cats, but he's sweet. And he's just like a regular person. He's been living out, with the books and with all the sort of wreckage of Washington, D.C., and you get the impression that there was some sort of massive global conflict, and, there's really, the only people left are the ones who are holed up in the city. He's sort of the exception to the rule, and they decide to bring him back.
And unbeknownst to them, Francis is following them all the way out. He since they destroy Box, he makes a pass without any problem. And Francis is beside himself, because one of the things we set up kind of early is the idea that Logan is kind of curious about things to begin with. He wonders what happens at renewal. He wonders a little bit about the life box, and whether you've ever seen anybody renewed, and just why do runners run in the first place? Is there any real logic to it or not? And Francis is basically like, why do you even ask this question? You've got it good, you're a man, life could be better. And I mean, he does. He has a cushy job, and life is easy and perfect, and then you die young and leave a beautiful corpse.
You don't leave a corpse, you leave a bunch of sparks.
You leave a bunch of sparks,
There's more sparks in this movie than anything I've ever seen. Shooter sparks.
Don't forget runners.
Oh, right. When you die, these people with jetpacks fly up and milkshake you very quickly.
Oh yeah,
no fuss, no muss. Yeah, so they decide to bring the old man back. So he walks around, sort of to the dome, and then there's Logan. Logan has defeated Francis, and he sort of has to go in and meet everybody else.
And then comes one of the cheesiest cliches in science, which is one of the weakest elements of the story. He gets caught by the Sandman, and instead of killed like everybody else, he's taken back to the computer to facilitate the plot. And the computer asks him to report on Sanctuary, where it is. Logan tells the truth that there is no Sanctuary. And instead of just, incorporating this intel, the computer says that's not acceptable. There is that entities monitor the computer around there. Logan actually doesn't monitor some sort of brain scan.
Yes, this is a special truth machine, and what you have to notice about this, and you may not have noticed, but I actually watched the special features on this, those are holograms. Those are actual, genuine, holograms of his head that speak as they rotate. It shows his mouth opening and closing, and the idea is it's some sort of truth-telling device. But this is 76.
Pretty good hologram.
Logan's Run was the first sci-fi movie to use real laser effects.
Yeah, I mean, now it looks cheesy, but you really have to appreciate that those heads at the end were that was the money shot. That was hardcore special effects, King Kong, $50 million, of course not that much money, but that was the big effect, the heads. And of course it looks like cheesy hologram heads rotating, but we should appreciate it for, at the time, I think that was a pretty big deal.
So the holograms are telling the computer, scanning Logan's mind, and he says there is nothing. The computer can't accept that. He tries to go harder, interrogate him further, putting all the strain on him, and he says there's no Sanctuary, and he's like, that doesn't compute, that doesn't compute, that doesn't compute. And basically the computer starts to crash, and sparks start to fly, those darn sparks again, and everything starts to go haywire all over the city. The people, everybody just runs and breaks out of the city and find this old man, standing next to a fire right outside the dome, and they realize that they can go old and gray, and everything is set right in the last 5 minutes of the movie, which is that's the one weak spot that really kind of grates with me. But
there's more than that. There's more weak spots.
The one thing that always bothered me, as someone whose previous career involved the care and feeding of Unix servers, the fact that a computer fed bad information would blow up and blow up everything around it, just always struck me as, why does anyone think that would happen? If you were building a facility and you knew ahead of time that when the computer got bad information, it would blow up, call it 3 square city blocks worth of property, why would you ever use a computer?
It doesn't. It's such a cheap conceit. But another thing that frustrates me about that scene is they're still in that 70s mall, and when they come out, you know that scene that they come out in this fountain. I mean, it looks like those cheesy like corporate architecture fountains that you see in front of office buildings, and that's like the top of this like magnificent underground city. I guess at the time like that architecture was like state of the art and completely mind blowing, but it's so distracting. It really feels like a bunch of friends went to the mall to film their movie. The whole thing looks like a mall. I don't think it's deliberate.
Why do you have a pretty little waterfall on the outside of a building that nobody's going to see anyway?
Well, what they say is it's the ocean. It's water from the ocean powering the city, but that's it's obviously just a fountain, a decorative fountain at a mall.
A fountain, yeah.
But that's their excuse for it. Another thing, we should talk a bit about the DC thing. I mean, the sequence where they're in Washington is obviously an excuse to sort of put a political tint on the whole metaphor and like add. I mean, obviously they see Lincoln and they say, "Oh, that's what old is," and then they see Lincoln again. Obviously, Lincoln is supposed to tell maybe the idea is that the people in the city are slaves. They're trying to go on that angle, but they reference Lincoln several times. They sort of introduce that, naive way. And then in the final battle between Logan and Francis, Francis picks up an American flag and uses it as a weapon. I mean, what like more clear? Obviously, this is sort of the United States is somehow implicated in this underground city business.
I thought the same thing with the books. They used books as weapons. When they were throwing it back.
Cheap metaphors.
Yeah.
And also a Farrah Fawcett in a small role, which is surprising because even by that point, I think she was somebody. She was already married.
She majored,
So, but she's in this movie as the nurse, a plastic surgeon nurse. But she doesn't last long.
Typical prophetic explosion death. You see her in that one pose.
I'm sure that was bad.
That just, I hate that. It's so cheesy. I know it now to be cheesy. Now it looks even worse. I don't know why that bothered
Okay, what about the movie did you guys like?
Peter Ustinov is an amazing actor. I don't know how they got him to be in this movie as the old man, but he's really hamming it up. He obviously doesn't have a whole lot of respect for the material. It's one of these situations where you just happen to get this sort of old but brilliant actor to be in your science fiction movie, and they decide, well, I'm trained, I'm going to act the hell out of this one. And he really acts the hell out of being the batty old man. He is chewing some serious scenery in this as sort of a wackier, cat-loving old man. But it's a pleasure to watch him, and and of course Richard Jordan. I mean his acting. I mean Michael York is very nice, but there's a reason they hired him for Austin Powers. And he's got this sort of blank British facade, and that's basically all that he can do. He can't do sets. He blank Britishness, blank British accent. He doesn't have many layers. But Richard Jordan really acts the heck out of this. He's sort of scary and sad at the same time. I thought he was great. You didn't like it?
No. I did like it. I'm actually doing a little research here myself. What I like the cinematography.
And Jenny Agutter is hot.
Okay, if you say.
She's hot.
If you say so.
Who is that?
She's the woman.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Jenny Agutter. Very attractive.
She has no pants the entire movie. She just has like a shirt that goes to her belly button, and then it's just like you're good from there on. Wonderful costume design.
No, what I liked the most was the cinematography, and I just now went and looked up who that is, and it was Ernest Laszlo, who did Fantastic Voyage, It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, Judgment at Nuremberg, Inherit the Wind, The Kentuckian, Kiss Me Deadly, Stalag 17.
Not a bad resume.
Not a bad resume at all.
But this was a big film. I mean,
pretty good looking decrepit Washington D.C.
Yeah.
You know,
They
it's
did a lot of
Washington.
things well. I mean, the city, if you really look at it, considering that we're talking about 1976 here, you get a lot of great miniature work with the city, these little sky cars that go in tubes from one part of the city to another. And
Right.
I thought it was pretty seamless considering they didn't have, Star Wars had not, that technology was not around yet. I mean, they were sort of working with physical objects and no motion control cameras. They were just doing it, and it's pretty impressive.
And they actually hid the fact that they were filming basically everything inside the city in a mall, except for the banisters on the stairs, which you can tell were escalator banisters.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those black rubber.
I thought those were
things you
supposed to
grab
be
on-
escalators.
What's that?
Were they trying to hide the fact that those were escalators?
I'm not
I
sure if
thought
they
those were
ran
just
or not. I
escalators.
don't remember. But just the fact that they used escalators was like the only thing that made me go, is that a mall? And then, you look at the architecture where you just have the big square with different floors going up, and you realize that it is.
Oh, it's such a mall. And there's, the scene near the beginning where they chase their first runner and sort of hunt him down. It's this extended sequence of the guy crawling from one level to another of the mall. And there's just potted plants and escalators, and it feels like...
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen these, like, urban ninja videos going on YouTube of, like, guys doing, like, jumps in, like, urban scenarios, but that's exactly what it looks like. They're, like, jumping from, like, one part of the mall to the other, and you practically expect to see an Orange Julius in the background. It's not a very convincing science fiction environment.
The runners in Logan's Run were the world's first free runners.
It's true. Maybe we should talk a little bit about spin-offs and the new movie. And that.
Sure. I definitely want to talk about the remake. But
There
that's
was
right.
there was a
Coming out
TV
next
show.
yes, there was a TV show. It lasted half a season, I believe, starring Gregory Carson, who most people might remember from Trapper John and Luke. That's what I remember him from, anyway.
Did either of you see this show?
I did not see
No.
this show at all.
We have a comment from Vanamond on the website. I prefer the TV series to the movie. Mind you, I saw the TV series first, and there was an android character, I guess. Didn't see the movie too much later, but there's another TV series, and it's too early. I think Vanamond is in the minority on this one. I think the majority of the comments about the TV show is that let's pretend it never happened. Along with the Blue Thunder television show.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I got an email saying that that's coming out on DVD, so...
We're gonna have to do an addendum episode.
Ooh, I hope not. That was
But there is a movie coming out in 2007. Who's the person behind it?
Joel Silver, who's doing the remake of that.
But
I don't know if they
the
have...
director is somebody. It's Bryan Singer. Bryan Singer will
Get out.
co-write and direct.
Really?
That's
Wow.
what the word is. These things change.
Yeah. Oh,
Wow.
he'll be signed up, and then he'll end up getting Superman 2.
I can only hope.
The one thing I see here, it looks like the remake is actually going to stick to the plot in the book, where the age limit is 21, not 30.
Yeah, I
And
did.
there are-
Earlier this week, I saw a website that had a comparison between the movie and the book. And the book was set up to be really anti-counterculture, or anti-comic culture movement or whatever, where it was basically, in the 60s, the whole counter culture hated the idea of age and youth was where it was at, stuff like that. The book was written as kind of a rebuttal of that, the idea that, of course, there's life over 21. And in the movie, if you changed it to 30, it means things happen afterwards. Like, change
Over
30.
30.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actors who were over 30.
But yeah, no, they definitely they're trying to change the message a bit. But in the original book, according to websites, the original book, they get out and the other cities are thriving. It's not that the whole world is dead. I think that was sort of implied that the system of Carousel, at least at some point, was useful because it actually preserved that little tidbit of people while everyone else died, I guess, from overpopulation. In the book, the rest of the world is still going, and it's just this one city where this one domed, sealed-off city that people still get killed off at a certain age.
Yeah.
And there actually is a sanctuary.
And in my search for the book, out yet. I saw that William F. Nolan wrote a sequel called Logan.
2 sequels.
And he wrote another one called Logan's Search.
Yeah.
Ah, I didn't know that. Either of you know anything about those two?
Well, according to Wikipedia, Logan, the second one deals with him returning, trying to sort of help his former city, get out of that situation. Because at the end of the first book, he basically just finds Sanctuary, which is on Mars. And in the third book, it involves an alternate reality where it sort of goes through it all again. The same city, but in an alternate reality. It sounds like this was a one-trick pony as far as science fiction writing. He's like, well, we sort of fixed everything. It's like, we can do Who's the Boss again, but it's an alternate reality where Tony and Angela never got together, and what's-her-name is legal. I'd watch that.
I'm sorry. Really, I am.
Yeah, best special effects of the movie, Jenny the Jagger's breath.
Oh, one more thing. It occurred to me when I was seeing this film. Are either of you familiar with a film called Zardoz?
Oh yeah, I've seen Zardoz.
Because this film bears a lot of similarities with that. Zardoz, which is a film with Sean Connery. I caught it one of those times when you're sort of on, watching like Skinamax or HBO at like 3 in the morning at a hotel and there's nothing on and you just stumble onto this weird 70s science fiction film. Zardoz is another situation where you have a character, Sean Connery, who's looking for something, some sort of mythic thing, and of course it turns out not to exist. That was 1973. So I highly recommend if you liked Logan's Run, I think you will like Zardoz too.
It's a John Boorman film. I'm gonna go check this out.
Yeah,
it's very...
Mike has it. Mike Menegay has it. I saw it at his place a couple of months ago.
I'm going to have to.
Yeah, it's a weird one, but it's interesting.
Very weird. It's very, very, very bizarre. And I'm just thinking 70 movies are bizarre in general. You
know what they were doing back then. You know what they were doing back in the 70s, right?
Lots of that.
Pink smoke. These movies make sense with pink smoke.
I'm gonna have to check this out. I mean, this is the guy who did Deliverance and Excalibur. Come on.
He did Deliverance?
John Boorman? Yeah.
Yeah. I know.
The guy who did Zardoz.
I'm Netflixing it.
The guy who did Zardoz did Deliverance and Excalibur. So, there you go.
One of the greatest romances of our time. Deliverance.
Yeah, I figured that. Okay, we have... I think we've covered about everything for Logan's Run we can cover today, haven't we?
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to take a little break and come back. Our friend Aaron has a new anime review for us.
Are you Battlestar Galactica?
Automated docking confirmed. clock when ready.